We've been in our new build farmhouse for about 2 months now. We still have projects that we are doing every day. There's always a little something that we're working on. The house feels mostly very done and comfortable, which is the place I just desired to be so much for the last couple of years as we planned this home and built it. But it is also summertime, so we are spending tons of time outside. We go to the creek often. We swim in the pool. There are gatherings and parties, and it is just such a happy time of year. But I still need to get food on the table for 11 people, and I'm always trying to figure out how to make that a faster process during all times of the year, but especially this one where we're not spending as much time hanging out in the kitchen. I am truly a person who enjoys cooking. I enjoy coming up with a creative dinner, but that is, of course, all when I have time to do so. And there are plenty of moments where I don't have a lot of time because we have so many children going in so many different directions, from teenagers down to a baby. And because meals happen 3 times a day, this is just a constant thing, whether the motivation is there or not. So I always have some things that I can make very easily with very little effort on my part. Now, one of them is getting a roast or 2 going in the Instant Pot, because it is something that you can set and forget. So you can get it going, whether it's 2 hours to dinner and you put it on high pressure for an hour and then let it kick to warm for the rest of the day, or even many hours before dinner. I do high pressure for an hour and then let it stay on warm all the way until we want to eat. So if I get that going in the morning, whether it's for lunch or for dinner, it is always so nice to have that shredded meat to pull from, because we can turn it into nachos, to tacos, or serve it with fried potatoes and a bag of frozen veggies, which we did today. Now, one thing I like to do to spend less time in the kitchen, use something that is already out, already dirty, and quickly get another meal going. So for today's case, I had all of the drippings from my roast in the Instant Pot already. Instead of draining that out and cleaning the Instant Pot, putting it away, I had a couple of pork loins in the refrigerator, as well as some baby back ribs. Those are very different meats, but to me, if you high pressure cook them in the Instant Pot and shred them, it all just becomes pulled pork. So that's something that I do pretty regularly, is just throw a bunch of different cuts in at once, add some salt, maybe some lime juice. In today's case, I was making them kind of like a carnita. My sister Andrea told me about this Better Goods packaged carnita seasoning that she loves. Well, I didn't have any, so I just looked it up and put in it kind of what I had that is like it, and it turned out amazing. Another hot tip I picked up from my youngest sister is the type of corn she uses and a tortilla press. So I got the whole setup here because it is just so easy to make homemade corn tortillas. Now, in keeping with super simple, super fast meals, you have no time in the kitchen, of course you can buy tortillas from the store, and this is the fastest thing ever, because basically you're just throwing meat in the Instant Pot, letting it do its thing while you're out doing whatever you want to do, and then shred it up and have tacos. But I will say, making these corn tortillas is so easy that after a few of them, my 10-year-old son took over and made the rest of them. So if you have any older children, maybe get them on this job, have them make up a bunch of these in bulk in preparation for easy summertime meals. Whether I am spending more time in the kitchen developing a new recipe or making something a little bit more complicated or labor intensive, or I'm making simple, quick meals like I am in today's video, especially during the summertime, I try to prioritize simple, healthy ingredients and stock my pantry and my freezer and refrigerator with local options, with ingredients and not pre-packaged foods, because I want to make sure that my efforts are spent creating healthy food, a healthy home, and the same goes for our sleep environment. And I want to say thank you to Birch Living for sponsoring today's video. We spend 1/3 of our lives in bed, so that's a space where we really get a lot of bang for our buck if we prioritize making that sleep environment as healthy as possible. That's why I love Birch Living, because they make mattresses that are free from polyurethane foams, free from fiberglass. They use natural wool, cotton, latex. They only use natural materials that don't have the same off-gassing that can happen in the conventional manufacturing process of making mattresses. This is why we have Birch Living mattresses all throughout our home. We have a few queen-size luxe mattresses for our older children. Then we also have a couple of the well-loved Birch natural mattress in twin size. Then in our room, we have the king size luxe mattress, which has the more plush pillow topper, which we really enjoy. I definitely appreciate a softer sleep environment, but still plenty of support for all of the joints so that we are super comfortable. Now, Birch also has a kids line, which is really great because it is double-sided. So it's a firmer side for younger sleepers. And then as they get older, you can flip the mattress. It gets a little bit more soft on the other side. So it can really grow with your child, making it an investment that will last a really long time. We are slowly but surely adding Birch mattresses all throughout our home. I think just about everybody has a Birch mattress at this point, which gives me a lot of peace of mind for their sleep environment. Birch also offers a 100-night sleep trial, so you can make sure that it is comfortable, that it is going to work for you and be an investment that will be in your home for the long haul. Right now, Birch is offering Farmhouse On Boon viewers 27% off your first order when you use my link, birchliving.com/farmhouse. I will also leave the QR code right here. Again, thank you so much, Birch Living, for sponsoring today's video. One of my tips for making meals really quickly in a pinch when you have nothing planned is having meat thawed out in the refrigerator, especially a ground meat like ground beef or ground sausage. It's just so versatile. You can make ground beef and rice, even if it's not thawed out. You can do that because you can simply just brown the meat, make some rice, maybe add a little bit of coconut aminos, a little ginger, a little brown sugar, or patty it up, make it into burgers, brown it up, put it on top of chips to make nachos, quick tacos. It's just so versatile. Another thing that is in my rotation is something really easy, something I don't have to think about at all and requires very little hands-on time, is meatloaf. Now, meatloaf might not be something that comes to mind when you're thinking of the easiest list of meals. Not that it's hard, but just it might not come to mind for like one that is defined by that. But I really find that it is for a few reasons. One is I don't get out any separate bowls. I just do all the mixing up right in the 9x13. And it's just a really simple profile of ingredients, a real simple list. So for our family, I do 3 pounds of ground beef, 3 eggs, just kind of spread some salt on there, eyeball it. I pour in some breadcrumbs. Now this is something that I like to regularly use up because when we make a lot of sourdough bread, sourdough biscuits, sourdough bagels, there tends to be little odds and ends and bits and pieces of leftover bread that somebody didn't eat. And I can turn that into breadcrumbs so easily by toasting it in the oven on a cookie sheet and then blending it. So I pour some of those on, pour in some ketchup, mix it up. And just like with a meat that's in the Instant Pot, or if in your family, if you use a crock pot, it's something that takes only minutes to prep. And then in the case of meatloaf, the oven does all the work. And so it's something that you can get going in the morning. If you are going to be out in the garden a lot, you can put the oven a little bit lower. I just like things like that I can mix up quick and then it's hands off. Other than that, especially things that have very simple ingredients that we always have on hand. I was going to originally just throw some sweet potatoes in the oven with it, so that way I don't have to peel or cut anything. I mean, we're talking 5 minutes of hands-on time for dinner in a few hours after being in the oven. But my kids actually don't love mashed sweet potatoes, so it depends on preferences. So I decided just to peel, cut, and season these because they like that a bit better with a little bit of paprika and cumin and salt. But if you just throw those sweet potatoes in straight on the oven rack with your meatloaf in the oven at the same time, and then right at dinner time, scoop out the sweet potatoes, add a little butter and honey and salt, we're talking a 5-minute hands-on dinner. After the meatloaf bakes most of the way through, I put a little ketchup on top, mix in a little brown sugar, again, right on top of the meatloaf. I'm not going to be making any extra bowls. So doing this, if you just throw your sweet potatoes straight in, or even throw in some russets and do baked potatoes, requires no cutting, no extra bowls. That's why I make it year round. Another thing that we rely on often is breakfast for dinner because I don't have to have anything thought out. It has healthy ingredients. It's stuff I always have no matter what. So this is like in a pinch, we'll do breakfast for dinner. I like to mill whole grains because that doesn't take a whole lot of extra time, especially if your grain mill's all set up. And so today I am making freshly milled chocolate chip waffles, cheesy eggs, just because everybody will eat eggs so well if I add a bunch of cheese to them. They taste excellent, very high in protein. And then we have a bunch of homemade yogurt right now. I usually try to make at least a gallon a week. I'm gonna blend that up with frozen bananas and frozen berries. And this will be a filling dinner that took no thought and very little time. What's funny though, when you really think about it, is we probably all agree if we were to come up with a list of easy meals, things that are just kind of like a bailout for everybody, we'd say breakfast for dinner, that we maybe wouldn't list meatloaf. But when you really look at it, I spent a lot more time making this breakfast for dinner than I did the meatloaf. And so don't overlook some of those staples that really require so little time. This next one, some of you might turn your nose up to, but it was delicious and everyone loved it. So my sister Ashley from New Hartford Farm Co. sells these healthy all beef hot dogs raised right on her farm, grass-fed, all that good stuff. So we recently picked up a bunch of them and I'm using them in all kinds of different ways. I actually just a couple nights ago made a sheet pan dinner with potatoes, zucchini, peppers, just covered everything with olive oil, salt, pepper, cut up these hot dogs, and it made such a delicious dinner. But for today's meal, I am making hot dogs and mac and cheese, all from scratch, all healthy, very high protein. So for the mac and cheese, I have a whole grain pasta that I picked up, and I'm just gonna mix that up with some freshly shredded cheddar cheese. That's important because if you get cheddar cheese in a bag, it just doesn't melt right. That's why I stopped purchasing pre-shredded cheese so many years ago. It just performs so much better in every way, plus doesn't have any extra ingredients. So I'll use that and some milk. After sauteing these hot dogs a bit, I'll just mix it all together. If you really think about it, it's very high in protein, whole grain pasta, cheese, local beef and milk. It's a comfort food, kids love it, but yet checks all the boxes. I can't tell you how often we rely on some form of creamy, tomatoey, chickeny pasta in a pinch. This is just what my daughter and we do a lot of the cooking here. Our brains both go to when we don't know what we're gonna make. We take some chicken breast and sear them, add a little broth to deglaze the pan, cut up the chicken, add in some tomatoes, milk or cream, whatever we have, maybe some cream cheese, maybe some cheese. Today I am just doing diced tomatoes and milk, and then we'll either boil pasta separately, or in today's case, my son, who has recently gotten into pasta making, made a whole bunch of pasta. So we had some leftover pasta that he made, which doesn't require a long boil time because it wasn't all that dry. It was a little dry, but not all that dry. So I'm just cooking it in the sauce. I'll salt and pepper to taste. I'll add some dried herbs and some fresh basil and freshly grated Parmesan cheese on top. This is a go-to staple for us, especially in the summer because you can add fresh herbs, but you can use any kind of pasta you have. You can use dairy products across the board. So yeah, like I said, cream, cheese, cream cheese, cream, comma, cheese, cream cheese. Sometimes we might add an egg yolk to make it more creamy. Any kind of canned tomatoes or even a tomato sauce, depending on what you have. So we had some petite diced tomatoes, which are actually my favorite. Broth to thin it, or a little bit of flour to thicken it. Salt, pepper, it's always a winner. Another thing that I have been wanting to share with you on here is an ice cream that we have been loving for a long time now. And I don't remember if I've shared it on here or not, but a peanut butter ice cream with a magic shell topping. We've been having this way too often. So we have our raw milk, we pour in a bunch of peanut butter and some maple syrup kind of to taste. But the more peanut butter you add, the creamier this will get, especially if you don't have any cream in the milk. So if it's mostly milk, if you add a little bit more peanut butter, it'll really help to give it a regular ice cream consistency. We blend that up, add it into the ice cream maker, and then the magic shell is just chocolate chips and coconut oil. With the magic shell, we usually make a lot and don't eat it all at once. So I just put it back in the fridge and then warm it back up over a double boiler. So just basically putting the bowl over some boiling water, and it just makes this really nice, crunchy exterior, very great texture, and it tastes like Reese's peanut butter cup ice cream. So good. The last meal I'm going to share with you today is seriously incredibly easy. This was my sister Andrea's idea. I went with her to Costco and she told me I had to get the kimchi because it makes for a super easy meal. It's really flavorful. So if you pour that in with ground beef, you can do that all on its own or add a bit of coconut aminos and sugar and serve it over rice. It is seriously the fastest, easiest meal and so incredibly flavorful. All right, well, I hope that you enjoyed some of these ideas that we are making this time of year as we're trying to spend a little less time in the kitchen. Thank you so much for stopping by our farmhouse.